So tonight we're going to be talking about Scorpio, and this is the 8th sign of the Zodiac. So in terms of the expression of the year as the Zodiac, the 12 signs of the Zodiac being 1 year, the 8th sign is the middle of autumn. So it's when the outer shell of things dies away in order to become like so it's the leaves fall from the trees, and they then turn to the compost on the ground that will become the power of new life. So it's the whole idea of Scorpio. One of the central themes of Scorpio is the idea of regeneration, that one can always, that one is cyclic. Things can always start again. Things can begin again. You know, there's a sense of new growth coming out of the destruction of the old. And so in a way, that is one of the most central themes of Scorpio. So it starts around about October 21 and goes on to November 21. And the second season. Now, Scorpio is the second water sign of the water element. So essentially, it works with the idea of emotions and feelings. And Scorpio is very deep in that way. So I think a good way to describe Scorpio is like a pool of water in the forest. I've probably mentioned this before if you talk to me a lot, but it's one of my favorite ways of describing the water element of Scorpio. When you're walking through the forest and you see one of those pools that doesn't move, the water doesn't move, it's like a stagnant water. You don't know quite how deep it is. You know, it's like it's the pond, but how deep is that? I'm not sure, because you can't see into it, or, you know, because there's depths there, and then there's like leaves and things or stuff floating on top, and, you know, but there's a sense of power holding itself there. And Scorpio is like quite a powerful sign. So it's also one of the fixed signs of the Zodiac. So the other water signs, so Scorpio is basically fixed water, okay? So just to remind you, the other water signs are the 4th sign of the Zodiac, which is the crab, Cancer the crab, the 8th sign, which is Scorpio, the scorpion, and the 12th sign, which is Pisces, the pair of fish. The other fixed signs of the Zodiac are the 2nd sign, Taurus, the bull, the 5th sign, Leo, the lion, the 8th sign, Scorpio, the scorpion, and the 11th sign, Aquarius, the water bearer. So they're the fixed signs of the Zodiac. So what you'll learn as we go through these, and as we go after these 12, after I've gone through the 12 with you, I'm going to really start to show you how to apply keywords. So, and that's when we're really going to start working with constructing the sentences of astrology. So, because everything in astrology is the language. So we're really going to start looking at that. That's when we'll be really picking apart the elements and the modalities, which are the fixed, cardinal, fixed, mutable signs. So we're going to be getting into that in far more depth. Okay, but these first zodiac sign lessons are to give you an overview of the sign, to help you understand character and personality, in terms of when you're looking at a chart in the future, someone has a planet or planets in Scorpio, you're going to be starting to see themes of how that expresses in the personality, knowing, of course, that Scorpio is everywhere. Like all the 12 signs, astrology is everywhere. It is the world around us. Okay, so but it's defining it, and it's refining it, and it's seeing it, and that's what I'm out to teach you, really, is to show you how to see it. Okay, so today, that's where, you know, this is why we look at the Scorpio as a theme. Now, the ruler of Scorpio, the traditional ruler of Scorpio, is Mars. Mars, if you remember, also rules Aries, which is a cardinal fire sign. So it's like, well, Mars, how come does Mars, you know, rules that sort of is that very fiery type of planet, and yet it is also the ruler of a water sign. And that's because there's power in emotion as well, and there's strength in emotion. So, so Mars has two different types, and it was like me talking about Venus as well. I was talking about Venus with Taurus and Venus with Libra. One is sensuality, Venus in Taurus, and then there's style in Libra, which is another way of looking at it. So, there's two ways of doing Venus as well. So this Mars is this emotional power. And so, that's that's the sort of direction we're headed in. And so the motivation of a Scorpio would be the impulse to go into the depths. Okay, so a Scorpio will take you further. They'll demand to go places further in, deeper down. They want to get to the very bottom of something. So they really like that sense of, a good keyword for a Scorpio would be an inspector. And that's literally like, it's looking at, if you take that word apart, then you've got the words, there's spectral in there, which is a form of light, but it's going inward light. So it's taking you further and further and deeper into something. What is the truth? What is the real behind this? What is the motivation, which is a Mars word? So, so in a way, Scorpio is very good at making transformations in others as well as themselves. They actually are set out to completely transform themselves. That's why they have a planet in Scorpio, whatever that planet is. They're out to use that planet to go through all the different lessons that they will require in order to completely transform themselves, to rise themselves up, to evolve. But of course, they want to do it to other people as well. That's, they're like, well, if I'm doing this, then you're coming with me too. and that can be quite Scorpio. So, they are the sort of people who are very good at pushing other people's buttons, pressing people to do things, and exposing stuff in a particularly in a taboo kind of manner. So they're very good at that. So, so basically, we're sort of looking at that idea of the power of what they're trying to do or what they're trying to achieve. So in a way, there's determination is a hugely important Scorpio word. And as is justice, not necessarily justice in the court, like a judge justice, but more of a, right, I told you so. Justice has been served. Karma has been served. And a Scorpio can often be seen with their arms folded going, you see, I told you, and that's quite a Scorpionic thing as well. So that's that they can be very good at that, So in a way, it is this sign of power, okay? Because of course, one of our in our human experience, emotions and feelings is exactly one of the core things about what we trying to understand in ourselves. And Scorpio excels in taking it right to the intensity, and that is a very good Scorpio word, intensity, intensifying intensity. So in a way, they strive for a sense of security and power, usually in that they gain that sense of emotional power. And then they know that they can't be beaten because, again, that's a Mars word, okay? So there's actually a very subtle form of emotional competition. So, Scorpio can be looked upon in quite a stern way as a destroyer and a regenerator. And that's actually quite close to their spirit, that's kind of what they do. But it's not when I say destroy, it's not they don't set out to be destructive people by any means. That's not, they're not that sort of person. They're extremely unevolved. They're more the sort of person who sees how to change things and then goes in there with a view to I think I can help them if I do that. And that's how the Scorpio can really get to the depths of things. And in their assistance to want to bring everybody up to evolve with them. Let's all move this upper scale here. So Scorpios make great counselors. They make great therapists. They make really good people like healers, but you see them a lot as doctors or medical professionals, because, you know, power is there, right, to heal, you know. They also make great lawyers and solicitors, you know, quite protective, yeah, but also prosecuting, because that's where the sting of the tail can come in. You know, it's like, well, you know, they see the truth, and, you know, if they're having to, you know, if they feel that justice again, karma to be served, then you can get lawyers who are incredibly good at prosecution, Scorpio lawyers, you know. So you know, it's that sense of having a very strong vibration. They're very powerful people. You can sense a Scorpio in the room usually, you know, or someone with several planets in Scorpio, because they have that intensity, and they have a tendency to act very decidedly on the physical plane, right? So it's like when they take action, they take action. So, you know, that can be, you know, so you'll see them in all types of religion. So in Greek mythology, it's the god Pluto, which is the modern ruler of Scorpio as well, Pluto. Okay. And I did do that planet in one of the previous things. So Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. And in India, you have the god Shiva, who is represented as Pluto. But if you look at the myth of Shiva, the Nataraj, the dancing god, who is destroying as it regenerates. I have Nataraj here because I've got Mars in Scorpio, so this appeals to me a lot. There's the Nataraj, and that is the ring of creation and destruction, simultaneous. It's a simultaneous process. We can't have one without the other, but that's also autumn, you know. So it's a pretty groovy statue, and I always see it as that to me is very Scorpionic in terms of an understanding of how it can be in a sort of a philosophical or religious way. So so essentially, Scorpio's kingdom is the kingdom of power, and so the highest achievement is the manifestation of its power. So when you're doing a Scorpio's chart, or when you're looking not necessarily just sun sign in Scorpio, but anybody with planets in Scorpio, then you look to the part of the chart where the manifestation of power will occur. We'll be doing this later on, of course, you know, but this is, and same with all the signs really, you look to that ruling planet of the sign to find out, you know, contents of the sign, ruling planet, you know, this is all the stuff we're going to be doing much later on, but I'm telling you now because I feel like I'm doing my Mars in Scorpio today. I'm taking you maybe deeper than we need to go, but you know, it's how it works, you see. So ultimately, Scorpio wants absolute self-mastery of its subject or whatever it's doing in life. So the solicitor will become the best solicitor. The doctor or the medical professional will be, or the surgeon, you know, slicing, you know, very Mars, you know, oh that, well, you know, whatever, right? But you get the idea. You know, they'll become the best at what they do. Even writers, right? A Scorpio writer will make books that will blow people away. And I've got a good example of a classic writer tonight to show you. So you know, you get the idea, you know. So so basically, it's to a certain extent, it's the destruction of the ego. I know you're like that, Scorpio might say, you know, but I thought if you were doing something a bit better or a bit different, you might be, you know, that instead. Why don't you try to achieve that, or why don't you try and reach up to be that? And that's the pushing of the buttons, you see, because some people will be like, oh, darn it, you know, you've exposed me, made me realize something, and you know, and then that person's struggling to catch up with, oh, you know, Scorpio who's saying, do this, do that, you know, and it can be quite frustrating sometimes for people to have to deal with a Scorpion in their lives. But we'll get to that in a minute with respect to relationships. But you know, Scorpios need to dominate desire. They have it extremely strongly earlier in life. I mean, very overpowering even, but then they have to learn to dominate that as a later on in life, you know. So in a way, they will do things that will, anything that holds back their moral, mental, or physical regeneration, you know. So they seek to attain complete control over their will or their willpower, you know. they're also their intellect, you know, a Mercury in Scorpio, you know, I mean, you can't argue them because they're precise, you know, and they can deliver the cutting phrase that just defeats the whole thing, you know. They're great researchers, you know. You know, the passions, you know, people with Venus in Scorpio, maybe Moon in Scorpio, Mars, of course, you know, there's a sense of like what, you know, the emotions, what the body does, you know, what the sense of the mental faculties, you know. Scorpio will use the mental faculties to attain power. And psychic, they're very psychic, but their psychic qualities, well, I'll get onto those in a minute, but often they are more the sort of sign that transmits, that pushes the thoughts into other people's heads rather than receives it from others. So it's a kind of telepathy where the Scorpio can be like, see, I told you you'd be thinking that. and the person would be like, oh, right. It's that kind of thing, you know. So in a way, there's a sense of you know, they must have progress. You know, once they realize what it is they've got to achieve or their goal, they'll be making considerable progress. You know, sometimes they might have failures and shortcomings, but they'll overcome them. You see, so they'll be like, right, you know, I ain't gonna let that stop me. You know, and so, you know, they, in a way, as well as on the progress they're making on their own upward path in life, it's they're doing it for others as well, you know. And that's the, you know, so like you might get like I don't know, just an example, like a football manager, right? You know, it might be a Scorpio, you know, he gets his team to the top, right? He's not playing on the field with them, right? But he's giving them the emotional power and support and control to push that team up to the top. So sometimes, because it's a Mars ruled sign, you see, yeah, the manager won't necessarily be running around on the pitch like a Mars in Aries would, right? But he would be standing on the sidelines going, you got to do it like that. Don't you get it? You can't kick the ball in that way. You've got to do it that way. or, you know, that sort of stuff. It's very management kind of control, you know, and same with things like CEOs and large corporations and things, you know, because Scorpio is attracted to power. Scorpio is attracted to money and resources. They love it, you know, because that's where the power is. Or so they perceive it to be. But on the flip side, you also get Scorpio healers, you know, transformers, you know. So, so in a way, it's about recognizing their magnetism, you know, that personal magnetism, that strange, slightly, sometimes possibly quite concealed or dark charisma that draws people to them. I don't know why, I don't know what I'm doing right now, you know, but I seem to be in this space doing that, you know, and it's like can be a bit of a Scorpionic influence. Someone, you know, like, you know, I don't know why, you know, it's like choosing a particular therapist or counselor or even, you know, there might be, I don't know, a churchman, you know, like a religious person who gets a bigger congregation on Sundays. No one knows why. He just happens to have planets in Scorpio, you know, and he might not even know it himself, right? But he has a strange charisma, you know, that might pull people in more deeply to interact with someone. So, you know, I think what you get is the idea of the impression of power, which is put across as a quiet, resolute strength. You know, they have capacity, they have will, they have determination to wrestle with and overcome suffering. They understand disease, death. They understand these things. They're kind of like on their path, you know, and that's why they're good healers. And so, you know, a powerful Scorpio can sort of reach out and touch someone and they can be cured. And that sounds a bit odd, but you'll see what I've got an example of one of those as well. Miracle healer. Okay. So, you know, that those sort of people are very Scorpionic. He's not on my list tonight, but think of Uri Geller. Okay, the guy who bends the spoons, right? Several planets in Scorpio, right? And he does this trick. He bends a spoon. Everyone, how the hell do you do that? And he goes, yeah, now I've got your attention. I want you to direct your energies to this. And it's so Scorpio. He is such a good example. I should have put him on. I should show you his chart, actually, because I've got the chart. It's quite well known, because he's been around for 40, 50 years, But he's quite the showman with his scorpionic power, and he actually has also the star Antares boosting him along, which is another thing to talk about at a later date, because I've got to give you basic astrology first before we do the advanced stuff. But when we get onto fixed stars, the stars, oh wow, it's amazing. But that's another thing altogether. But the point being is that the Scorpio can impress their will, right, on others, okay, and so the most fractious or rebellious person can be stopped to listen and hold still for a minute. Did you hear me? I'm telling you something now. This is very important, and so they make good military people. Scorpio's great military people, Now here's an interesting character. He's not on my list either tonight, but Boris Johnson's got the moon in Scorpio at the very beginning of Scorpio, 0 degree Scorpio. And for some reason, right, he has a type of charisma that goes well with his Sun conjunct Venus, by the way, on his midheaven, on his career point. So he's that foppish look, as the Venus Sun. But he's got moon in Scorpio, which does something, to how he does it, how he is who he is. But there's a depth of intensity there, and other Scorpios. There's so many. I'm going to show you some. I've got a selection to show you tonight, but I'm trying to give you a few quick examples as I talk about them as well. So, so they can cure. They can cure. They can heal. They can make changes in people. So, they're, in a sense, they're the sort of character who can give a very steady look and a command. And it's like, stop that, and the person will go, oh yeah, right. and that's quite hypnotic. A Scorpio loves hypnosis. I mean, people with planets in Scorpio, they dig their hypnosis big time. So we could relate into the idea of miracles, miracle healers. They really are quite good at that. So Scorpios, as I said, are generally psychic, but they don't often realize it because they're already exceptionally good at their sense perception. So they are already very observant, sight, hearing. That they attribute their achievements, as it were, in the rapid diagnosis or detective work or observational things. So it's all down to their quickness and accuracy of observation is a Scorpio. So they do things, they can be very good at things like accounting and finance. But another good Scorpio example would be, have you ever seen the American painter called Bob Ross on TV? Have you seen Bob Ross on TV? He's on iPlayer now. Okay, so in the 1980s, there was this guy, I don't mean to go, but he's a good example of a Scorpio. So go and watch Bob Ross. I think it's on iPlayer. Bob Ross, he paints pictures on TV, teaches people how to paint. And it's creative, of course, but there's something, and it's very charming, right? Because he's got planets in Libra as well. But he's a Scorpio sun sign. And he would be like, yeah, you can just make these, you start with a blank canvas. Oh, just start this, do this. And it's in half an hour, he turns a blank canvas into a painting as a process. And he encourages people to do it. That's actually, in a very wider kind of scale, that is a transformation. Because the program starts, here's a blank canvas, the program finishes it, it's turned into something completely different. So I mean, that's taking Scorpio, that's taking the science, the divine art of astrology or the divine art of understanding Scorpio, is that it's a process of transformation as well by his actions, which is Mars. He's got his palette, he's got his paintbrushes, he talks about the colors, he's talking about the style. So there's something Scorpionic in that, because you see there's Scorpio in everything, as in with all the signs. It's everywhere. Does that make sense to you? You see what I'm trying to say? Yeah. Okay. So in a way, as I said, there's a sense of that they have an ability to transfer their own thoughts to others, rather than receive them from others, because of the willpower of Scorpio is so very strong. Okay, and in a good, but it's in a good way. It's not necessarily, you know, it can be, you know, it depends how it's applied, you know. So now when it comes to relationships, of course, you're entering the land of intensity with Scorpios, because then you're getting down to the very base level of how we share things and how, you know, how things are interacted as two. And so Scorpios tend to be very distinctly exclusive, and they can show their likings for something or dislikings for something quite suddenly, and that goes with their kind of sense of intuition, and they're not really like sentimental types. You don't get Scorpios going, oh, being gushy or sentimental. Oh, you know, no, that's not Scorpio's territory at all. That's more the crab. Yeah. So, you know, Cancerian the crab, Pisces the fish, they'll be the sentimental ones. They'll be the ones going, why are you crying with the rest of the family? Oh, God, I haven't cried since I was 10. It would be a Scorpio, you know, so that kind of thing, you know. So they're you know, they're going to be like, they find it quite difficult to express their inner thoughts and feelings, you know, even when they desire to do so, you know. But it's by their action, you see, that they do things, and they're so that ultimately actually quite reserved. Yeah, they hold their own, right? Again, this is actually quite a Scorpio. That is quite Scorpio body language. It's the crossed arms, you know, because they'll be like, right, well, I don't know. But you know, when of course they do get deeply moved, then they will speak. They're not going to be completely mute to their feelings, you know, or their expression of feelings, and that's when you'll get the deepest stuff, because when they do let it out, then it's really let out, and everyone's like, oh my God, the dam burst. You know, and it's like, oh, you mean you? And they release all the secrets and all the hidden stuff, and it all goes boom, and everyone's like, well, thanks for the nuclear explosion. You know, when you coming back again? You know, kind of stuff. So that, you know, they can be quite like that. So you know, so you know, because this is the Scorpio sting to the tail. Of course, you know, they can actually also sting themselves. Oh God, I didn't mean to say that. Oh no, and it's too late. and you know, and things like that. So that can be also of the nature of Scorpio, you know. So you have to think of the archetype, you know, think of what the Scorpion does. It hides under rocks in the desert. It goes far away from things because it knows it's powerful. That that archetype of that particular creature knows it's very powerful. So they tend to, you know, keep themselves to themselves. But of course, no, that's not completely what a Scorpio is meant to do. Of course, you know, because they have great gifts. And this is the thing, you know, because without Scorpio, life would be boring. You know, there'd be something very much missing if we didn't have that sort of person around. You know, we need that kind of energy, very, very much so in life, you know, because it pushes us forward. Again, it's that Marsy kind of quality to it. You know, they're extremely powerful people and very needed in the world. You know, so it's not like, you know, I'm just saying it's part of the completeness of all the images of creation, you know, of everything that we have. Scorpio plays an incredibly important role. You know, if the leaves didn't fall off the trees, how could we have a new season? You know, I mean, you know, what, you know, perennials, things that come back every year. You know, it's like everything. You know, you get left with the bare stalk at winter, as it were. You know, but the light comes to life again. You know, and that's kind of cyclic of Scorpio. You know, you have to think like that. You know, how things will drop away to then be reborn or regenerated, and therefore highly valued because of their ability to see deeply into things. So it's an incredibly powerful sign, and it's a good one. It's a great one, in fact, and no one should ever doubt them. Look at all of the modern astrology you get on things like Facebook and stuff, all the memes and things that say, oh no one picked a Scorpio, and because and it's like they get a bad rap. It's sometimes unfair, even. And the way that sometimes people sort of treat them with a bit of a what we might call the barge pole effect, something like that. It's really not the case. It's not meant to be like that. It's like, bring the power in. Let's have some of that power. Let's all share it around, and let's make some evolve. Let's evolve together, kind of stuff. That's why they make good healers. And if they've got maybe a bit of fiery energy with that, they can run workshops. They get public positions in life. They're very good at it. When it comes to mating or relating to Scorpios, they will rebuff with their honesty, but that's actually being quite kind of a Scorpio because they're so perceptive. So they can be sometimes like, I don't think I'm right for you, a Scorpio would say, because they know that, there would maybe the relationship could be too turbulent, because the Scorpio can see that person might not be that sort of what they need, So, but Scorpios don't tend to vacillate too much. If they say, if they know what they want, they know what they want. So, that tends to be, but it also depends what other planets they've got in their chart. That, they might have strong desires again. Whether those desires are being met is another matter. So I'm going to now give you some idea of positive and negative expressions of Scorpio, in terms of a sort of balance between what could be seen as good parts and not challenging sides of things. So if a Scorpio is being intense and passionate, then of course that can turn the other way around in a negative. So a positive way of saying would be it's intense and passionate. A negative way might be saying it's overly intense or lustful or even sometimes violent. So a positive expression for Scorpio would be loyal and steadfast in adversity. I'll stick by you, whereas a negative side could be possessive or jealous or unforgiving or resentful, or even revengeful. Another really good Scorpio, for someone who plays a lot of roles in the films, and he's not on the list tonight, but is Joaquin Phoenix. Of course, that he's got tons of planets in Scorpio. I didn't put him on the list tonight, but he plays those roles brilliantly. They're the vengeful one, the revenging type of vengeful, vindictive type. And of course, Phoenix is an archetype of Scorpio, so he didn't call himself that for nothing. Anyway, let's go over to the charts. So I'll do a share screen with you. Yeah. Okay then. So first chart up is Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula. So this is born in 1847, but he had the sun and moon in Scorpio, and of course one of the big things of the theme of the vampire was they couldn't stand sunlight, and that was what would destroy them. And he's got the sun in Scorpio with the moon. And also Chiron, but we won't do Chiron now. But the idea of this is Sun, Moon, Scorpio. So he was going deeply within, that sort of Scorpionic kind of energy of what should we say, probing desire. You have to think of the contents of the book there and what it was all about. So, but that's Bram Stoker, okay. A very modern film actor is Ryan Reynolds, who does Marvel characters, and he played in the film Deadpool, which is a classic, as I was telling you earlier. That's a very Scorpio name for a film, and he's got the sun with the North Node and the Moon and Uranus and Mars in Scorpio, so very, very Scorpionic. And that is actually an accurate time, I believe, as well. So second house, so earning a lot of money for what he does, and being valued for his probably the quiet power of stage presence and things, wearing the mask, being, you know, the Marvel kind of character. And he's had a couple of other films that I thought have very Scorpionic titles as well. Something like, anyway, yeah, something like Hide the Lovers Away or something. It was an interesting guy. I thought, oh, that's quite Scorpionic. And then we've got Katy Perry. So again, this is actually also a time chart. Libra ascendant, okay? Quite interesting because you have Libra ascendant, then a whole pile of planets in Scorpio. So this is someone with the Sun Pluto who absolutely had to be a pop star, right? There was no other way about it. I'm going to get on there. I'm going to make those videos. I'm going to be famous because it's all first house. It's all about her. And so it's Sun and Pluto conjunction with Mercury, with Saturn, with the Moon. You know, that's not an easy chart actually, but she's made it. But I don't think that necessarily provides great easy relationships. So Saturn with the Moon in Scorpio, but again, because it's all about herself. So you know, being kind of very you know, have a very strong allure in her videos, and things like that. So you know, that's quite an interesting kind of combination there. We've got Jodie Foster, who has 4 planets in Scorpio. And with Jodie Foster, well, she was a child star first in a very controversial film called Taxi Driver. And then she went on to do, well, of course, she peaked. I mean, what better film could it be than Silence of the Lambs, right? I mean, that is such a Scorpio film. It is, you know, it deals with taboos. And that's a, you know, deep thriller, very powerful film, and actually properly scary as well. So you know, and then she also did things like the one where she went into space. And another thing she's done in her private life is she's had 2 children, and she won't tell anybody who the fathers are. If it's one father or 2 fathers, she's keep the fathers a secret. And so that's Scorpio, keeps secrets. She is not revealing who the fathers of her children are. And that's something that she does, you know. And she had the stalker at the time of around about 1980, 81. She was stalked. This guy called John Hinckley Jr. sent her lots of letters, lots of love letters, which of course she didn't reply to or anything. But then he went and attempted to assassinate President Reagan. Shot him. He actually shot him as well. And that was the you know, he was the stalker of Jodie Foster who went to shoot Ronald Reagan because he thought that she told him to, or something, one of those kind of weird sort of things. But that you know, that was it. That was she was involved in that. So you know, she had a stalker, which of course, you know, the strange allure of Venus and Scorpio combined with Neptune, you know, quite powerful. So yeah, and now we've got our current president of the USA, Joe Biden. This is an accurate chart. He is 8:30 a.m. 4 planets in Scorpio, including Mars. You know, does he go to war? You bet he does. Does he? You know, behind the scenes, 12th house. You know, does he? Is he a warlord? He is. So it's all hidden, though. You know, you might not see it directly because it's 12th house, hidden matters. But did they just start a war in Israel today? And when Obama was president and Joe Biden was vice president, was there a lot of bombing all the time? So you know, there wasn't much going on when Trump was around. He didn't do much war for 4 years. Not that I'm not being a Trump supporter, by the way. I'm just telling you, you know, the difference. And so here you have a Mars in Scorpio, right? With the Sun, with Venus, with Mercury. This could be the industrial military complex of the United States, and he's one of the politicians behind it. But I'm not saying he's a bad guy either. I'm saying that he sees the power of the money and resources involved in that structure. So that's what I'm saying there, right? Because that's what Scorpios will do. They'll see something powerful and they'll see it as a way of resources, and they can tap into that. So he taps into it. And there we go. So it's, again, but you don't see it. It's 12th house, quite hidden. And we've got the singer Lord, from New Zealand, who has the Sun and Mercury. Interesting voice, Mercury, or, you know, so that's, anyway, that's Sun, Mercury in Venus. And she had a couple of songs where we could be all something, we could do this, we could do that. I can't remember quite what it was now, but she had a few, you know, and she was quite a character. She hit the scene quite a big way. And dominated for a couple of years, had a couple of big albums. But you know, just that she had that scorpionic character, and she made it quite quickly as well. She to the top, because she was only like, you know, 17 or 18 or something, and she suddenly had platinum selling albums. And you know, she's a bit like I haven't checked her chart either, but Billie Eilish, I believe, probably has some Scorpio, probably. You know, because they have there's a power in what they do, you see. So it's about applying power, you know. Same with any of the younger pop stars, you know, when they get chosen quite quickly, they have that strange allure or charisma that gets people going, oh, I like them, and as a result, you know, they get places quite quickly. So then there's this chap, Jeff Buckley, who had an amazing singing voice, really beautiful songs, quite haunted, who died after he went swimming in the Mississippi River. I mean, he was a big, very popular singer-songwriter. I don't know if you've heard of him. He did an album called Grace that was just huge. And but then he mysteriously, no one knows why, he decided he was going to go and swim in what was, technically speaking, really a dangerous river for its tidal flow and various things. But he maybe was drunk or something, you know. Mysterious life. Neptune is involved. You know, Neptune with Mercury, Neptune with the Sun, Neptune with Venus. You know, so there you've got all those planets in Scorpio with Neptune all conjunct, and the South Node can, you know, a lot of lessons to learn, repeating patterns, so something like that. So that can be that's a good you know, I say good, it's a powerful combination. He made it, but then he self-destructed, but he self-destructed not in an obvious way, in a very subtle, you know, I'm going for a swim, where's he gone? Missing for 3 days, turns up dead. Oh, okay. You know, so you know, very powerful singer. A lot of people were very, very affected by Jeff Buckley's death. A lot of music fans. He was a very charismatic chap. So you might want to look him up and listen to some of his stuff. Sai Baba. So here's your miracle healer. Okay, he's the guy who creates gold watches with a sleight of hand. Hey, you like a gold watch? You can have one. Rolls Royce, Mr. Rolls Royce. He's a bit like he's a completely different type actually to Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, but he also likes his luxuries. But he's the guy who has the huge frizzy hair. Yeah, so he's the Indian guru with the huge frizzy hair, the big kind of like a microphone of frizzy hair, and has worldwide devotees. But he likes to make things appear out of thin air. It's a bit of a Uri Geller, actually. But he also does miracle healing. So he's known for touching someone and healing them. And that's in India, of course. That's why he's famous. He lives in India. He's not much of someone who's ever left India, as it goes. I don't think he's not a sort of international guru. He's a stay-at-home guru, and people will come and see him. You know, so he'd have queues and queues of people at his ashram, you know, to be healed. And he does touching healing, you know, like a sort of the you know, that's what he does. So with him, you've got Sun conjunct Saturn in Scorpio at the very end of Scorpio, which is actually on a very interesting star. That's the hoof of the centaur, that star. It's quite powerful, actually. Just at the very end of Scorpio, around about 28, 29 Scorpio is the hoof of the centaur. And it is known to be a very powerful star. So he's got a little clustering of planets right there. His ascendant, which would be the physical incarnation, you know, because that's where the heavens meet the earth, is the ascendant. We'll cover this in later lessons, you know, but the 4 angles of the chart are hugely important. Okay, so his rising sign is Scorpio, which is also the look, right? And Mars, you see, Mars rules Scorpio, and so his ascendant is affected with Mars, you see, and he's got the frizzy. Mars is hot and dry, yeah, and his hair is quite frizzy, like hot and dry, yeah. I'm sure, I hope you know who I'm talking about here. You might have seen images of him. He's very popular, a big guru. You know, he's huge. So blah, blah. Anyway, okay. So, but that little cluster of planets there is very interesting. So, and that's why he does what he does. Now this is a perfect example of the power of Scorpio. Okay, like an angel, Joni Mitchell. Okay, just amazing. Okay, beautiful songstress, wrote the most beautiful songs, really moved people with her emotion and her voice. Songs like Woodstock, or oh my God, you know, Big Yellow Taxi, and all the rest, you know, stuff that she worked with Crosby, Stills and Nash in the 1970s quite a lot. You know, David Crosby actually discovered her, but the thing is that before David Crosby discovered her, she'd given up. She was a single mother, and she'd given up her daughter for adoption, and she didn't want to, but circumstances had it that she had to. And she was writing songs to her daughter. Her whole motivation, her whole life, was she was writing songs to her daughter that she never knew. She gave birth, had her for a few months, and then she adopted her. And this is the Sun, Mercury, and Scorpio in the 5th house with a Cancer ascendant. And just to add to the motion. And no one knew that for quite a while. And then she finally told everybody, you know, once she was a superstar. And it was only about the year, it was the late 90s, I think, that she finally got reunited with her daughter. And of course, they're best friends now. But you know, she eventually went and found her, but that is a Scorpio. You see, you know, the power of emotion. You know, having to give up the child. You know, the power of that, the motivating force was he then wrote the most very powerful emotion, feeling-based songs, all for the daughter that she never had, or that she was missing. You know, so. There we go. Very interesting character to look at for a chart. You know, again, this is one to study later on. And look, Moon in Pisces on the midheaven. That's why, you know, she made all the hippies, you know, just everyone loved her completely, you know, Moon on the midheaven in Pisces. We've got Tilda Swinton here. Don't have the time of birth, but really interesting actress. Something, you know, you know, like it's kind of almost like an albino, isn't she? She's something about her, that super pale skin, that very white hair, you know, it's like almost like so mystical. And that's why they made her the witch in Narnia, in the Chronicles of Narnia movies. Those are probably her biggest movies. She's the White Witch, the evil witch. And so you have Sun with Neptune and Scorpio with Mercury, you know, and then she did stuff with David Bowie. She guested on his penultimate video, or his second to last single that he did. So about 2 years before he died, 3 years before he died. He did a single with her, and I think she spoke on the single, and it was in the video. And she's quite a strange character, but there's something very Scorpio about her. And that also brings to mind, I must tell you, about the physical aspects of Scorpio. They tend to have quite a noticeable chin. The Scorpio chin is really something, and it tends to be kind of pointed, you know. And I'm not saying it's obvious, because it isn't. You know, you'll see it in some Scorpios. Sometimes it's obvious, but they have that slightly pointed chin, and the brow's very curved. You know, it has a they have quite a kind of like a sort of slightly overly spheroidy kind of shape, where it points down to the chin, and that's what I would say about them generally. And usually, some tending to have brown or green eyes. Saying that, though, there are blue-eyed Scorpios, but yeah. Anyway, so there we go. There's Tilda Swinton. Just think of the roles she played, and then look at her picture. Look at Tilda Swinton, some pictures of her, and you'll get what I'm talking about. That's slightly something different about her. Very different. She stands out from people very strongly. Now we have, and here's a chart. You see that this is how Scorpios can change everything. Okay, Scorpios can change everything. Christopher Columbus, he changed everything because he sailed. He was brave, got in his boat. He said, I'm going to sail round the world to prove that it's not flat, or whatever it was, and he could discover the Americas. So he discovered a whole new world, the New World. And what does he have here? But the sun on the 4th house cusp of the IC with Mercury. So it's the Sun Mercury, right? And this is an accurate chart, by the way. This is a real chart for him. And he's got Sun on the IC in Scorpio, right? So new land, literally 4th house, new land, IC, the base, the foundation. And there we go, right? So Christopher Columbus changed everything. That's a Scorpio for you who changes things. Changes people's perception, people's consciousness. He did everything in the 14th century, changed the world. Terence McKenna, may or may not have heard of Terence McKenna, author and adventurer, but a lot to do with inner space, has changed a lot about the world because of what his theories and all the things he's talked about. He's a very interesting character. Has a very interesting voice, although his Mercury's in Sagittarius. But he's got the Sun and Venus and that Scorpio ascendant, late Scorpio ascendant again, but the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter. So Jupiter is the beliefs, you see, the philosophy. So I've gone on to Jupiter now. With Jupiter and Scorpio is beliefs and philosophy and understanding and learning and higher visions, higher mind, universities, academia. And so in Scorpio, he shook the foundations of everything, with his understanding of what may be, food of the gods and books like that. And, but all that 12th house stuff, anyway, that was Terence McKenna for you, okay? So, and charming as well. They're like a little gnome. He's always like a bit of a gnome, a bit of that sort of quite a strange little character, really. And I never met him, but anyway. And now here's another good choice. Here's Roman Abramovich, the Russian billionaire, who started out skint. Okay, apparently in Russia, used to sell clockwork toys on a blanket in a street in Moscow. Then somehow got to be a landowner where they discovered oil. And that's what did it for him. Maybe I can't remember quite what did it, but I think it was land that had oil on it, and his life changed. And so he is the Sun in Scorpio, 1st degree or 0 degree Scorpio, with Mercury and Neptune. Quite powerful character there, and all in the 2nd house. All this in the 2nd. Venus there, kind of in the 2nd as well. But that's in Libra, so we won't talk about that. But there's a little selection there. So this is someone who would plan Mercury, how to use his money, 2nd house, and Mercury trines Saturn, you know, so strategic, quite strategic with things. And interestingly enough, of course, that Mercury and the Neptune and the node kind of got to Pluto a bit, Pluto being the modern ruler of Scorpio. So yeah, there we go. And then we go to Kirk Hammett of the metal band Metallica, who, you know, he was a founder member of that band in the early 1980s. They've stuck together as a core band. They haven't changed much, so I don't think their lineup has changed that much. And he has several planets in Scorpio in the second house. He's a songwriter as well, so he knew how to do the music business, to be a songwriter and a musician. And he, so, you know, he didn't mess around with how money could be made, second house. But, you know, there's a lot of energy there. And that, you know, metal is quite a scorpionic thing because it is Mars ruled. And Mars, of course, does kind of go quite well with rock stars. His Mars happens to be in Leo with the moon. So they have a very strong, dedicated fan base. You know, 11th house would be the group as well. And so there we go. He's interesting for that. And some of the titles of their songs, of course, are very, very scorpionic influence. So Nothing Else Matters, I believe, is one of their biggest hits. You know, it's like this is, you know, the intensity of Nothing Else Matters. But then there's things like Enter Sandman and stuff like that. You know, there's quite a lot of Scorpio feel to their music as well. Relentless, should we say? You know, power of music, power of the relentless sound. Driven as well. Now, a writer with Scorpio planets would be Robert Louis Stevenson. Now, I've picked him out just because he's got 3 of his biggest books are all Scorpio themes. So there's Treasure Island, okay, which is like X marks the spot, you know, classic Scorpionic stuff, hidden treasure. Scorpio hides things away, you know, hidden treasure. And he's got Mars and the Sun and Mercury all together in Scorpio. In his, this side of the MC it's the 10th, but it also has a slightly this side of the MC can be linked to publishing because it has a kind of 9th house, slightly 9th house type of influence. So Treasure Island would be the hidden thing. Long John Silver, with the peg leg, you know, that kind of slightly sinister character. And then there's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is just a Scorpio book. You know, the character who has the very powerful shadow, and which is quite Platonic, of course. You see, you know, is the shadow. So, you know, if he drinks the formula, the shadow side comes out and is brutal, you know. So you got the positive Dr. Jekyll, who wants to help people, is a doctor who heals, medical professional, very popular in London, you know, does all this stuff, you know. But then Dr. Jekyll has the formula, he drinks the formula, he can't help drink it to release Mr. Hyde, who becomes the shadow figure who murders and destroys things. So the whole book is about the conflict between the shadow and the light of the self. So, you know, that's a very Scorpionic theme. And then his other book was Kidnapped, which is the idea of abduction. Or, you know, is what it's about. And that is also very Plutonic because of the myth of Persephone. Pluto being the modern ruler of Scorpio. So there's your Robert Louis Stevenson, really classic Scorpio writer. And when you see Scorpio writers, you could spot in their titles. It's like you could spot the musicians by their music. You can spot the actors by what they play. It's about seeing it, you see, see it. It's with all these signs. I show you these because I like to I do stelliums of planets, clusters, you know, because then it becomes much clearer to see it specifically, you know. It usually has when you've got, say, 2 or 3 planets in the sign, it's going to be a strong signature in the character or personality or the life or what they do, you know. So that's why I picked these charts out like this, because there's many charts to choose from. But it's yeah. So then we got Leonardo DiCaprio, a Mars in Scorpio, with Venus and the Sun. Venus and the Sun very close together. So Venus is under the Sun's beams. But we'll be talking about this later on when I get more into the things about conjunctions and various stuff. But Venus, Sun with Mars in the second house. So some of the roles he's played, he did the reclusive billionaire, the reclusive chap. The title of the film eludes me for a minute, but it was a reclusive chap who didn't know how to handle his money or something like that. And then he did The Wolf of Wall Street, about the Wall Street trader, with vengefulness and all that sort of stuff in the movie. And recently, the one I went to the cinema to see, and it was mind-blowingly good, or very powerful, was that when he did that survival film where he trekked across the American wilderness, and he got attacked by the bear and everything, and he survived, and he fell off the cliff and all that. I can't quite remember the name of the film now, but he just played that role, and he did it so well, and it was very Scorpio, and it was all about survival. I think that might have been the name of the film actually, but he won. That's what he got his Oscar for. He finally got his Oscar, and it was for doing that movie because he wanted to break out of character. He had to break. He'd been doing this character. And he made he made some movies in the last, say, 5 or 6 years that needed to break him out of character, because he was stuck with Titanic originally, which is a disaster movie, of course. So that's scorpionic. The iceberg. I mean, an iceberg is Pluto because it's hidden under the water. You don't see it. You don't see the top bit, and then you don't see the rest of it. So he was that role. And then he did various other different things. He was in a Tarantino film in which he played a particularly violent moment, very unpleasant. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think I watched the movie, but I can't remember. It was a Tarantino film that was released a few years ago, not that long ago. And then he did, as I said, these financial movies, 2 really big financial movies, and then he did The Survival. And so he's, again, the theme of Scorpio runs very, very strongly in his chart. Yet, you see, he's a Libra ascendant, which is all charm and style, with the moon in Libra, Mercury in Libra, he knows he comes across as with tons of charm and style and sociability and grace and ease and, friendliness and relatability. Yet there's that deep Scorpio working down there as well. And if you see the themes of the films that he plays, you can see that Scorpio. So have a think about that, okay? Because it's interesting. We've got Simon Le Bon, okay? Duran, right? So loads of planets in Scorpio, right? So here's a guy who took an 80s sex symbol, pop music, singing, dancing, 4th house Scorpio. Okay. So this is the first hit single was Planet Earth, right? The home Earth, very kind of ground. Here we go. Planet Earth, anyway, but you got everything that Duran did is kind of represented with this. He was, hugely popular. People were obsessed in the 1980s. He had, girl fans, everyone was fans of Simon Le Bon. And he had a very interesting Scorpio moment. He got into yacht racing and he had this life or death moment. I can't remember quite when it was. It was, I think, the late 80s. It was definitely the second half of the 1980s, might have been 1990, 91. Around about that sort of time, but he was getting into yacht racing, and the yacht he was in with the crew, it flipped over in a storm, and they were stuck under the yacht, holding on with the yacht was quite a big one as well, and it couldn't flip, So he had this massive life and death moment, and it was all international news. Simon Le Bon, helicopters flying over this yacht, stormy seas and all sorts of stuff. You know, Simon Le Bon's inside that yacht. It's flipped over. They've got an air capsule that's running out. There's about 5 or 6 people. A couple of people died as well in the whole process. And then afterwards, he was like, "I made it. I can't believe it. I thought I was going to die. I was so close to death. It was so scary. You know, I'm never going on a yacht again." You know, that was basically what you've said. And so you had your Scorpio very close to the edge, you know, and therefore the regeneration based out of that, you know, but also the money made as Duran Duran, you know, fortunes, and all the radio play that they get today still, you know, so done very well. We've got Carl Sagan, the American astronomer, philosopher, a cosmologist. So again, this is a Jupiter Scorpio, okay? And he'll say, "Let me take you on a journey into deep space." And so he'd do the program Cosmos, and he'd literally take people on deep journeys into space, but also philosophy and theory and mathematical theory and physics. And so Jupiter, you know, very Jupiterian, a great learner, a great teacher, and a presenter, you know. So, you know, was able, because he had the Sun Venus there. So it's a Sun Venus conjunction. So he had the charm, he had a charming ability, but it was always the deeper journey, you know, that kind of, that depth of, let's go into the galaxies, let's go beyond the galaxies, let's go, you know, and he had that sort of quality about him. So Carl Sagan, yeah, 6th house. He worked not only at, but I think he actually was a lecturer professor, you know, I think that's what he did. And then we've got the actor Richard Burton, who is a Sun-Saturn conjunction, immense emotional control, okay, in the 8th house, very powerful. Of course, he married Elizabeth Taylor, divorced Elizabeth Taylor, and then married Elizabeth Taylor again. And that's kind of one of the things he was famous for. And if you look, he's got so many planets in that 7th, 8th, 9th, and then Venus on the MC. But that's a lot of control there. Sun-Saturn conjunction in the 8th house. You know, Hollywood star. He had, you know, there was something about him that was very, very, very intense. He had an intensity. But you know, one of those great sort of movie stars from the 50s, 60s, 70s. But that, yeah, there's a lot to do there with Sun-Saturn. So next time, if you happen to watch a movie about him or see anything, think of that Sun-Saturn being quite powerful. I bought his chart because of the Saturn quality. And then my last one today is Condoleezza Rice, who of course was George Bush's right hand. You know, when he was 2 terms American president, it was Condoleezza Rice who was right there all the time, wielding power with him. You know, so, and she is a Sun-Saturn, and this is that's an accurate chart, 11:30 a.m. So it's Saturn on the midheaven with the Sun and Venus, and that's your power in politics, power behind the throne, or power with the throne, shall we say? You know, so a Saturn in Scorpio, you know, working at the greatest structure behind things, the law, the order, the structure, the pressure of keeping it real. George Bush was apt to go a bit, you know, he was a bit sort of in his own way quite vague, wasn't it? Or came across as being quite vague and a bit half-hearted about everything. But it would have been her who would have been keeping in check, you know. That Saturn, Sun-Saturn, you know, very strong presence, quite quiet but powerful, always there, always there, you know, but not necessarily the ones. Well, she did give all the press conferences. Actually, she did pretty much speak for him, or you know, and the Republicans for about 8 to 10 years. She was very powerful. So Condoleezza Rice, Saturn in Scorpio. And that brings us to the cyclic end of tonight's chart.